All right, let's get right into it. This is a story about the power of a single click and how it put one scholar directly in the path of a massive state apparatus. And we're not talking about a political activist here. We're talking about an intellectual, a thinker, whose simple act of sharing something online landed him in prison.
So, meet Chen Jinyuan. This isn't some revolutionary leader. He's an independent scholar, a physicist with a PhD who spent his life buried in research. I mean, we're talking about everything from astrophysics to brain cognition. His social media? Think of it less like a political soapbox and more like his personal digital library.
And for just a handful of retweets, he was sentenced to 1 year and 8 months behind bars. Just let that sink in.
That's the big question here, isn't it? How does sharing a few posts on the internet become a prison-worthy crime? Where exactly is that line? Well, to figure that out, we need to break down exactly how the state built its case against him.
So picture this. Chen is living a pretty quiet life in Baoshan. He's taking care of his elderly parents, he's continuing his research, and then, boom, September 2022. The police break down his door, they arrest him, and suddenly he's the subject of a major criminal investigation, all because of his online activity.
So what exactly was the formal charge? Well, the state didn't just say he posted things we don't like. They accused him of a very specific crime, one that's, let's say, notorious for how flexible it can be.
The crime is called xunxinzushi, which translates to picking quarrels and provoking trouble. You know, legal experts have a nickname for this one. They call it a pocket crime. Why? Because the definition is so incredibly vague, it's like a pocket you can pull out to prosecute almost anything you want, especially online speech that the authorities aren't fans of.
Okay, so what was this trouble-provoking evidence? Get ready for this. The prosecution's entire case rested on things like a symbolic cartoon, a retweet from the U.S. Embassy's official account, a kind of snarky comment about a tech company, an academic post about political theory, and even images found buried in the temporary cache of an old phone. This is what they built a criminal case on.
But this is where the story takes a really wild turn. The court's official reasoning? They didn't just find him guilty, they actually used his intelligence against him. The verdict literally said that because he was highly educated, he should have known better than to share what they called false information. His own education became an aggravating factor in his crime.
But Chen was not about to go down quietly. From his prison cell, he did what a scholar does best. He researched, he analyzed, and he put together this absolutely brilliant, meticulous defense in his appeal letters. He wasn't just defending himself, he was putting the state's entire legal logic on trial. And his whole argument really boiled down to one critical point. See, the law for provoking trouble isn't just about saying something someone doesn't like. It specifically requires that the action causes severe public disorder. So the question is, did Chen's retweets, seen by his, fewer than 100 followers, actually cause any real chaos in the streets? Chen set out to prove there was no way they did.
He came at them with a three-part rebuttal. First, the scientific argument. Using his own field of complex systems theory, he argued that as a tiny, marginal node in a massive network, his post couldn't possibly create a systemic avalanche of disorder. Second, the legal argument. The prosecution offered zero, and I mean zero, evidence of any actual disruption. And third, maybe the best part, the empirical proof. After he got out, he went and checked. The supposedly dangerous posts were still online and nothing had happened. Absolutely no impact. Case closed, right?
But he didn't stop there. Chen's defense went even deeper, right into the philosophy of information itself. He basically argued that the state didn't even understand what it was prosecuting. They were calling his posts rumors, and he was about to give them a lesson on what a rumor actually is. He broke it all down into these 4 clear categories. He said, look, artistic works, like a cartoon, they're metaphors. They can't be factually false. Subjective emotions? Those are just personal feelings. You can't verify them. Rational opinions? Those are just ideas up for debate. They're not false facts. He argued that only one category, objective descriptions of reality, can even possibly be a rumor, because it's the only one you can actually fact-check.
So what you're seeing here is this huge clash of worldviews. On one side, you have Chen arguing for a careful, nuanced understanding of speech. He's saying only factual claims can be judged as true or false. And that, by the way, it's impossible for a regular citizen to have to verify every single thing they see online. But on the other side, you have the state's position, which basically lumps art, opinion, and emotion all together as potential false information. And it puts the burden on you, the citizen, to just know what's true and to censor yourself.
So what starts as a story about one scholar and a few retweets really blows up into a much bigger, more fundamental question about how law and justice actually work.
There's a perfect quote from a legal analysis of the case that says this whole thing is a, quote, public lesson on the conflict between a country's constitution and its judicial practice. Think about that. You've got the law in the books, the Constitution, that guarantees things like freedom of speech. And then you have what actually happens in the courtroom, where vague laws are used to punish that very speech. Chin's case is sitting right in that gap.
And that really leaves us with this final hanging question. When the law as it's written and the law as it's practiced are two different things, what does justice even mean? What does justice look like when a scholar can be imprisoned for sharing a cartoon? It's a question that this case forces every single one of us to think about.